Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect, and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Matthew Cherney. He is the managing member and attorney at Cherney Law Firm, LLC. He has offices in Marietta, Georgia, and Woodstock, Georgia. And we are here today to talk about some financial problems that some people will get themselves in. Most importantly, questions about bankruptcy, what to file, and just what kind of questions that Matt can answer here for us. So welcome to the show, Matt Cherney.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your law firm. Obviously, bankruptcy is a big issue. Is bankruptcy all that you deal with?
Sure, Neil. Yeah. So I've been practicing exclusively in bankruptcy and debt-related matters for about 13 years. I started practicing in my hometown of Chicago, Illinois, back in 2005. And practiced there at a large bankruptcy firm for approximately 4 years. And the firm I was with provided me an opportunity to move down here to Georgia. They were expanding their practice into other markets, and I was afforded the opportunity to move down here with my wife and act as managing attorney at the firm down here in Georgia. And I stayed with them for about another 5 years and then started my practice, my own practice, and I've been in private practice for myself, dealing exclusively in debt-related matters for about 6 years now. And my practice focuses primarily on consumer bankruptcy cases, specifically Chapter 7s and Chapter 13s.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on all that. Starting your own practice and going out on your own is definitely a great step, but you certainly have more control of your business and you have more hands-on help than you probably would at a firm, more of a personal touch. I definitely like that. So talk to me about some of the issues that people are having these days with debt relief, and what kind of solutions are there available for them?
Sure. So in all my years of practice, certainly I've kind of run the gamut and run into almost any sort of circumstance that you can imagine. I've been doing this quite a long time now. And, I have clients, anywhere from clients who are unemployed, in scenarios where they just can't begin to service any portion of their debt. I have clients who are underemployed. These are clients who once, made good money. And at the time they were able to service what would have otherwise been a manageable amount of debt relative to their income. And now their current income just simply doesn't allow them to maintain their payments on their debt while still maintaining a certain standard of living. I have clients who fell ill, recently hospitalized, who simply just can't afford to maintain or begin to pay what's otherwise an astronomical amount of debt, medical bills. I have clients with tax debt. I have clients who for a host of different reasons simply fell behind on house payments, vehicle payments. And perhaps it's not necessarily a matter of maintaining these payments going forward, but for unforeseen circumstances, they just simply cannot catch their payments up. And one thing that I've found over the years that, dealing with debt brings with it, potential legal issues, but it's not always just legal problems for individuals. I've found that the larger issues are emotional. Clients, many of my clients deal with anxiety, stress, shame, embarrassment, all things associated with the underlying debts. They feel like they maybe have let themselves down. Perhaps they feel like they've let their families down. They feel like they've got nowhere to turn. So, a lot of this, while it does stem from debt and having, creditors that might be harassing you or trying to collect from you, I've found that, a lot of the collateral issues are largely emotional. And that's something that's not lost on me. And that's something that, I try to really try to be an advocate for clients and try to show them that I understand that these things are larger than just the debt itself.
Well, that's what everybody is looking for when they get into trouble. They need that advocate, that's somebody on their side that is going to be able to guide them out. And there are different paths in order to do that. But tell me, before we move on, what is the most common case? I know you listed a bunch of different cases here, but where do people find the most problems? Is it just kind of running out of money, or their expenses, creeping up, and they don't find the money to pay them?
Sure. So, it changes over the years. There's in good economic times, I found that it comes from unforeseen expenses, household expenses, illness, during less than stellar economic times. Oftentimes it may come from unemployment, underemployment, just inability to service the current debt that they have. There are times where, when you make a good living, you provide for your family, you're able to afford the monthly payments associated with your debt. And then there comes a time where you're just not able to do it anymore. And, people are faced with the idea of, well, do I provide for my family? Do I pay my mortgage payment, my lease payment on my apartment? Do I pay my car note? What do I do? Where do I turn? And these are the harsh realities and circumstances that face a lot of my clients.
Now, we have been recovering from, that recession back in 2007, 2008 when the market crashed, but it's been pretty good for the last 10 years. Do you see things in the market suggesting that it's going to turn again?
Well, I do. In those signs aren't as, the signs before were very tied to the housing market. And that was one thing that most people point to when they talk about the recession, and it affected a lot of people back right around the time that I started practicing, 2006 through 2008. A lot of people point to the housing market, but now the signs, I think, aren't necessarily tied to that. More in my practice, what I'm seeing is are things tied to lending, just lending in general, specifically vehicles. That's one big thing. Subprime vehicle loans. I see a bubble really getting ready to burst there. Traditionally, vehicle loans were, a 5-year loan, 4-year loan. Now you're seeing some vehicle loans stretched out as far as 7 or 8 years. And oftentimes these sort of subprime loans are going to carry with them rather high interest rates, 18, 25%. Some people don't, unfortunately might not be as savvy to look at the amount of interest that someone might pay on a vehicle over 8 years on a 20-year financing. Sometimes people are paying 60% more than what the vehicle may even be worth. So I see a lot of that. Student loans is another huge area where something at some point is going to have to give. I don't know if that's going to be by intervention of Congress, but, that is something that is certainly coming to a head. So much student loan debt, and folks, no matter what their financial circumstances are in life, oftentimes have difficulty in dealing with these things. And that's not just, someone who, is working for minimum wage. I mean, these are, professionals, doctors, lawyers. These sort of student loan payments are just, in many respects, becoming very unmanageable. So I think that the, signs of a recession or signs of difficulty and financially, are becoming more and more apparent, not necessarily tied to housing, but more towards things like vehicle loans, just lending and student loans, et cetera.
Right. And, there's so many ways to get into trouble financially, whether it's through employment, like we talked about, unforeseen circumstances, or just making these purchases that, stay on your bills for years and years and years as everything else is piling up. So when somebody does get into trouble, what kind of options are available for them?
Sure. So, I meet with clients all the time, potential clients or just individuals who might be, looking for some sort of solution to deal with their debts. That could be the possibility of trying to negotiate lower payments, negotiate settlements on a particular debt. Bankruptcy, while an option, isn't always someone's first option. A lot of times, the first thing a potential client and I speak about is the fact that no one wants to find themselves here in my office and having the conversations that we ultimately have. A lot of people, as I said, might feel embarrassed or they're already dealing with anxiety and stress and perhaps shame. So, we sit and we have an open conversation about what options might be available to them. And if they're not in a financial position to negotiate any sort of payment or settlement, we can always look at the option, look at bankruptcy options, be that a Chapter 7, be that a Chapter 13, be it some sort of reorganization mandated by the courts that allows individuals to either eliminate their debt in full or perhaps reorganize their debt, put together a plan that allows an individual to pay back their debt or a portion thereof in a more economically viable way, something that suits their budget, something that's not just based upon the debt itself, but based on their ability to pay.
Right. So break down the Chapter 7 and the Chapter 13, because I know a lot of people just need clarification on why you would use either one.
Sure. So Chapter 7 is going to be really designed for individuals who do not have the financial means to pay back their debt. That's kind of referred to as sort of the complete bankruptcy, or, most of the time if someone's doing their own research on bankruptcy or learning a little bit about bankruptcy, the first thing that they see is the idea of Chapter 7. And Chapter 7 really is there to deal with things like unsecured debts. Unsecured debts, be them credit cards, be that medical bills, be them personal unsecured loans where they haven't pledged anything as collateral for the loan. And really what we're illustrating in Chapter 7 is that one cannot reasonably pay back their debt within a period of time, however nominal that payment would be. Chapter 13 is really going to be designed for individuals who may not qualify for Chapter 7. That could be either based upon the fact that they've filed a Chapter 7 within the last 8 years, or perhaps they make too much money to do a Chapter 7 because there are income criteria for Chapter 7. So Chapter 13 is going to be designed for those individuals, or it could be designed for people who may be trying to protect an asset, like a vehicle that they may have fallen behind on that's in danger of being repossessed. It could, they could be looking at Chapter 13 to prevent home foreclosure, to protect their home. They've fallen behind on their mortgage payments. And Chapter 13 allows them to consolidate all of their debt and propose to pay it back to their creditors in some form over a period of anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at these two options, obviously for two completely different cases, but what does this do to the credit, and is that a big fear that people have before coming to talk to you?
Certainly. So certainly one's credit score is of concern to individuals, and then that's a lot of times, when we sit and we have a discussion about what option is going to suit the individual best, one thing they ask is well, what's it going to do to my credit? And my response to that, while not dodging the question, is oftentimes, well, what does your credit look like right now? A lot of times if I'm meeting with someone, chances are their credit might not necessarily be in the best state of repair. So my answer to that is, well, if the credit is not necessarily in the best state of repair currently, then the less effect a bankruptcy is going to have on that individual's credit. Now I do have folks who are trying to simply be preemptive. They know, okay, well, I've been making my minimum payments on my cards. I've never missed a payment. I've never missed a payment to anybody, but for reasons X, Y, and Z, I see that at some point that's no longer going to be the case. Well, a lot of times those individuals have pretty good credit scores. The only thing that might be affecting their credit score is their debt to income ratio. They're paying on a lot of debt, maybe just barely, and relative to their income, that could be affecting their credit score. But otherwise, they've maintained payments all along, never missed payments. The effect on those folks' credit is going to be a little bit larger, because we'll presume that their credit score is higher. So the higher your credit score, the more effect a bankruptcy filing is going to have on it. But I really try to kind of convey to folks, especially those who really need the relief, is we've kind of got to shift our thinking here and shift our focus from what is the effect going to be on my credit to how do I perhaps start over? How do I perhaps get into a better financial circumstance, a better financial situation? How do I sort of change the path and sort of, shift it from what's my credit score going to be to how do I get out of this debt? And if we can kind of shift the focus to that, a lot of times people say, well, okay, I can kind of put those thoughts about what the effect is going to be on my credit score. I can kind of put that on the back burner and kind of just look forward rather than, look behind.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are the major fears? Because you said this was definitely an emotional place to be. There's embarrassment, there's shame, there's stress and anxiety. But as far as fears and looking to the future, what are the things that people are really concerned about?
Well, a lot of times if they've, one thing is, well, if my credit score is going to be effective, a lot of it has to do on, rehabilitating. Where am I going to be, a month after bankruptcy, or a year after bankruptcy? What is my credit going to look like, and what are ways that I can, rehabilitate my credit? Those are certainly concerns, and a lot of the concerns that people have, I've kind of come to learn might be better explained as kind of misconceptions. A lot of times people feel that, well, if I file bankruptcy, I'm going to lose everything that I have. I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to lose my house. So that sometimes I've learned is a misconception, because that's in every situation, that is not the case. Frankly, that's more the exception than it is the rule. As much as people in the immediate sense worry about what bankruptcy is going to do to their, whether they're going to lose their property and what's it going to do to their current circumstance, they're also concerned about rehabilitation and where they'll find themselves after bankruptcy is over.
Yeah, I think, some of the major purchases that they have made, obviously the home, they need a place to live and they want to make sure they can keep that, and the car, they need a vehicle in order to go to work, which are two extremely important things. So how do you save those kinds of assets?
Sure. So, for example, if someone is delinquent on their vehicle payment, or if they're delinquent on their home mortgage, we do that, and we accomplish that through a Chapter 13. And a Chapter 13, presuming the individual meets those requirements, which ultimately it's that they have regular income. And regular income could be classified in many different ways. It's not just, having W-2 wages. It could be self-employment. It could be fixed income, Social Security, child support income, rental income if they rent out a room in their house, or if they have property that they lease to another individual. So regular income is the criteria. So what we're able to do specifically with those debts where the individuals become delinquent, vehicle, house note, we're able to take those debts and pay them back through a Chapter 13. Vehicles specifically would be paid in full, subject to certain modifications, perhaps to the interest rate, but generally the vehicle would be paid in full through the Chapter 13 plan. House notes, what the plan is able to do is able to take those mortgage arrears, the amount that the individual is currently behind at the time of filing, and propose to pay those arrears back through the Chapter 13 plan. Certain districts in the U.S., certain districts are different as to how the mortgage lender is paid going forward. Here in the Northern District of Georgia, where I practice, the plans are structured in such a way to where the plan only contemplates paying back the arrears. The individual is then obligated to make those mortgage payments going forward with the next consecutive month. So, for example, if an individual filed Chapter 13 on the 3rd of the month, the Chapter 13 plan would cover paying back all mortgage arrears through December. The individual would then be responsible to maintain and resume making mortgage payments in January. So by having a plan that contemplates paying back those debts, it prevents a vehicle creditor from repossessing the vehicle. It prevents a mortgage lender from foreclosing on the property.
Well, it's definitely something that's very helpful to a lot of people out there, just getting that little respite where they can catch up a little bit. What are some of the warning signs of bankruptcy?
Well, I think those come in many different ways. As I kind of said earlier, it's not always just going to be, okay, I missed a payment, or I've got a creditor that is calling me or sending me letters, or, knowing that you have a debt. A lot has to do with just the emotional side of it too. If someone is getting anxious about a particular bill they have coming up and whether or not they should, make their payment to a particular creditor on a credit card, or if I do that, how am I going to, pay my light bill or pay my gas bill, or if you're using your credit cards to pay your normal household expenses. in juggling balances between one card to the next. And, those are, largely, warning signs potentially that, just having the ability to, meet your obligations without that sort of anxiety when that time of the month comes. So I think those would probably qualify as some warning signs.
And do you feel right now that most people are living above their means?
That's a good question, Neil. I think that it is always going to be relative to their financial circumstances. So, at the current, what I'm seeing currently is that, incomes are starting to rebound. I think that, people are starting to recover just purely from employment. So people are going from being unemployed to being employed. So that doesn't always mean that your current employment situation is sufficient enough to maintain, maintain your debt and make those payments each month. Your income before might have been considerably more. Your income now might be less than it was, and you just can't afford to do it. I don't necessarily see that people are living above their means as much as they're really scratching and clawing to be able to make their payments as they are now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Matt, give me some examples of people that you have dealt with. What kind of position were they in? How were you able to help them? And ultimately, what was the outcome for their lives?
Sure. So as I kind of said earlier, I have clients that it runs the gamut. From unemployment, underemployment, medical-related issues, tax-related issues, mortgage, vehicle-related issues. And one thing I try to convey to all of my clients or people that I meet with is that, ultimately bankruptcy can be an option. Nearly every individual that I meet with shares these same feelings. After I meet with them, they begin to realize that there are options. Most even start to feel a bit of relief after the first consultation. I find that it's simply, perhaps just having someone to talk to, just an objective person to speak with, someone with experience who can, tell them that they understand their situation. They don't have to feel like they're being judged. I can't count the number of times that clients have told me that they'd wish they'd at least come to speak with me sooner, especially after the process is over. Again, whether that's completely eliminating their debt and not having to worry about how they're going to make a certain payment, on a particular month. And they can then reapportion that money to other, other areas of their life, providing for their family. They wish they had taken the steps sooner. And ultimately, every client that I have and every client that I help ultimately winds up happy that they met with me and that they went through the process.
Right, and that's the great thing about the job that you are doing, Matt, is you are making a tremendous difference to people's lives. You talk about just the stress and the anxiety that people are under, and it makes sense to talk to somebody that has solutions. So if somebody is listening to this and they have some of those issues that we've been talking about today, and they want to get in contact with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure, thanks, Neil. They can reach me via phone. I've got a great assistant here that works with me. Her name is Denise, and they can be reached via phone at 770-485-4141. That's my main office number, 770-485-4141. Oftentimes people, they're a little bit hesitant to want to speak to someone on the phone, so they can always go to my website, which is cherneylaw.com. That's CHERNEY law, LAW.com. I have options of being able to converse via email. My email address is mcherney@cherneyLawFirm.com. My website, as I just mentioned, we can also set up appointments via text. You can always text me. I 9 times out of 10 am going to be the individual that is responding to the text messages. That is, certainly something that I've learned over the years that I try to bring to my practice, which is that sort of personal touch. A lot of things can get lost in the process of, okay, I have an attorney, but can I actually speak with that attorney? What happens during the process? And that sort of personal side to it is something that I really try to bring to my practice. So if you call in and you need to speak with me and you want to speak with me, you can speak with me. If you want to text, we can text. And I welcome that opportunity.
Well, I'm looking at your website, and there's definitely a lot of information on here. I hope people got something out of the information that you have given today, but there's definitely a lot more information on Matt's website here at cherneylaw.com. And the other thing about what you just said, this being an emotional situation where people, might be a little bit embarrassed about making the first contact. And the other thing that you do, that personal touch, so you're not being passed from person to person, and you're getting the attorney there that's going to understand your emotional needs, which I think that is extremely important, Matt, as well. Seems like you're doing a really great job with that, and wish you the best of luck. And thanks very much for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today.
The pleasure is mine, Neil. Thank you very much.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.